Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Lithium Chile live corporate webinar. This is Will Mays with RB Milestone. Lithium Chile has ownership in the largest high-grade lithium reserves in the world and located in Chile and Argentina, with management team proven leadership in the lithium space, as well as an experienced Chilean and Argentinian-based technical team. The shares are traded on the TSXV under the symbol LITH and on the OTCQB under the symbol LTMCF. Join us today is the company's president and CEO, Steve Cochrane, who will be going through Lithium Chile's investor presentation. This will include a brief overview of the company's strategy and current operations, as well as upcoming operational timeline and investment milestones. At the end of the presentation, we'll open up for Q&A for management to address. And if you're interested in asking a question or logged into the Zoom app or web platform, you can submit your questions to us directly in the Q&A module. Please note that this presentation is being recorded today, Thursday, January 26, 2023, and will soon be made available on the company's website at www.lithiumchile.ca. Today's call may contain forward-looking statements that are subject to risks and uncertainties that may cause actual results and performance or developments to differ materially from those contained in the statements and are not guarantees of the future performance of the company. No assurance can be given that any of the events anticipated by forward-looking statements will occur, or if they do occur, what benefits the companies will obtain from them. Also, some risks and uncertainties may be out of control of the company. Lithium Chile has a full disclosure contained in their presentation. Lastly, RBMG is not a registered investment advisor or broker-dealer. For more information, please visit rbmilestone.com. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Steve Cochrane, President and CEO of Lithium Chile. Steve, the stage is yours.
Well, Will, thank you very much. That was a very interesting introduction, but I appreciate taking the time to introduce the Lithium Chile story to some of your connections, your investors. And for you who are listening, I'd like to welcome you. Good afternoon. And I hope at the end of this presentation, you feel as excited as we do with respect to the potential of not only Lithium Chile, but the whole direction the EV and battery industry and lithium sector is going. As Will mentioned, we are solely in two of the three countries that make up the lithium triangle in South America. The highest grade brines, the highest quality brines, and over 70% of the known reserves in lithium reside in Argentina, Chile, and Bolivia. We are fortunate and we're unique in the sense that we have projects in both Argentina and in Chile. What makes us unique as well is that we have an exploration portfolio in Chile consisting of 12 salars, highly prospective, early stage exploration projects in Chile. But the real differentiator is we also have a developing resource story in Argentina. And as I go through the program, I will show you a little bit more why these two, I think these two great factors, one being exploration with all of the upside that exploration brings, and yet you also have a really developing resource story that underpins the valuation of the company. With lithium trading, currently lithium carbonate trading currently around $75,000 US, and you'll see an initial resource currently sitting at almost 2.6 million metric tons of lithium carbonate. It really does give us some support from a valuation standpoint. Very quickly, forward-looking statements, Will touched on that. But here, in essence, is a summary of who we are. Chile, as I mentioned, we have 12 salars covering a total of 111,000 hectares. And in Argentina, we have 20,800 hectares in Salta province and the Salar de Arizaro. I should quickly point out that Salta province in Argentina, the provinces control the resources, much like here in Canada. And Salta province is one of the most, if not the most pro-mining province in all of Argentina. So there's a huge amount of investment, not only because they have such a large lithium resource, but their pro-mining policies, their pro-mining regulatory environment makes Salta province one of the most attractive investments in mining in Argentina. From that asset in the Salar de Arizaro, we have announced now we've drilled 2 production wells that have resulted in a 43-101 compliant initial resource, totaling 2,587,000 metric tons of lithium carbonate equivalent. Both in the indicated and inferred category, the total amount is 2.5 million. It's significant because in some of our contemporaries' case, they had to drill 5, 7, 10 holes to get to that 2.5 million metric ton resource. We've done it in 2 holes. And I think that highlights the potential of the Salar de Arizaro project that we have underway. We are currently drilling a 3rd production well on that property in Argentina. That 2,587,000 came from the initial 2 wells. The 3rd well right now is down around 300 meters. And we are confident that that 3rd hole could add an additional 800,000 to 1 million metric tons of lithium carbonate. So we're really getting into that sweet spot in our sector. You know, companies that have had, 3.5 million metric tons in the resource category have been acquired over the last 1.5 years by the big players. So we're just now on the cusp of really creating that resource that will make us very attractive to some of the bigger players in the industry. The other thing we're doing right now is we're advancing our 2 projects, potentially 4 projects before year end, but we see very little value in our market cap for our Chilean assets. They're great assets. They're generating a lot of interest by third parties right now. Chile is becoming attractive. Argentina is becoming very expensive to operate in. So Chile now is attracting a lot of attention from companies like Mitsubishi, Aramet, Rio Tinto. They're all looking at Chile as an attractive alternative. And we feel we don't have any value in our current market cap. So it's our goal this year to advance at least 2, possibly 3 projects so that people will see the potential that we see in these exploration projects in Chile. Final is we've got a significant cash position. We're sitting on approximately $39 million in cash right now. That certainly removes the capital risk from the story. We're certainly well financed to carry out everything we have on the go right now in Argentina, as well as the projects in Chile, and still leave us with $25 million sort of free cash in the bank. And again, the results that we've been able to generate is directly to the credit of the people we have on the ground, both in Argentina and in Chile. So the fact that 6 years later we're here, we're stronger financially than ever, and we've got one of the biggest developing resource stories in Argentina, I think is tremendous credit and the responsibility of the great people we have in the company. Very quickly, this is the map of our properties. All the red indicates our projects, both in Chile and, of course, the flagship project in Argentina, the Salar de Arizaro. Total is over 130,000 hectares in total. And again, if you want to look at a quick valuation, we're seeing property prospective lithium projects, exploration projects, change hands in Chile for 2,500 US a hectare and as high as 5,000 US a hectare. So this large portfolio of projects and claims again, is really an undervalued asset that's sitting in the company. I'll show you a project later on that we were approached by another group that has some additional claims in the area. And the amount of money they were asking for that project was off the charts. And that's the Amera project here. Touch on that a little later. This is one of the reasons we're so bullish and excited about the next few years for Lithium Chile is the strength in lithium carbonate prices. We survived the bottom. Late 2020, prices bottomed out for a ton of lithium carbonate around 5,000 US per metric ton. Today, they're trading at 75,000 US per metric ton. So going back to that underpinning of our valuation, we're sitting on 2.6 million metric tons at 75,000 US per metric ton. You could do the math. And again, there's just tremendous upside that we think we could generate over the next 12 months just by proving that asset in Argentina is much bigger than 2.5 million metric tons. Lots of activity in M&A in our sector, particularly over the last year and a half. The big takeaway, though, is all of these companies acquired were pre-production. None of them had plants. None of them had permits. They were all resource stories with a defined resource in the ground. So all of these acquisitions ranging from 300 or 400 million to the case of Ganfeng's recent purchase of Lithia at $1 billion have all been done on companies that have only reported a resource in the ground. They weren't producers. The most recent acquisition was in December of last year. Arena Minerals is a neighbor of ours. They're a small player, small parcel of claims on Salar de Pasto Verde, which is about 50 kilometers away from us. They only own 50% of the asset, and yet they went for 311 million Canadian. So again, when you're looking at valuations, we feel there's lots of upside in the Lithium Chile story. And the reason is our flagship property, Salar de Arizaro. It's the largest salar in Argentina and one of the most undeveloped salars prior to our team making the discovery they did in December of 2021. And the primary reason is illustrated by this slide. All the prior work that had been done, all the prior drilling that had been done on this salar was only to 300 meters. And the top 300 meters of this salar is basically a rock salt cap. It has brines in it, very low grade lithium brines, and very low porosity, very low flow rate. So all the previous work that had only gone down 300 meters had resulted in most companies discounting this as a non-commercial lithium deposit. Our team did something nobody else has done on this property, and that is drill deeper. Instead of drilling 300 meters like everybody else had done, the team had really hypothesized that below this halite cap, there was probably a more traditional aquifer. So we drilled to 465 meters, and lo and behold, from 330 meters to 450 meters, we discovered a classic Argentinian-style brine aquifer. We had grades of lithium upwards of 550, and we had huge porosity, 25% porosity, flow rates of about 22 liters per second. And this really changed the complexion of the whole salar, and obviously was a game changer for Lithium Chile because it gave us our first actual lithium resource. Remove that exploration risk. We have the exploration upside with our projects in Chile, but remove the risk, the downside. We now had an initial lithium resource. We had Montgomery Engineering out of Tucson take a look at the numbers we had, flow rate, grades, and generated a 43-101 compliant initial resource of 1,420,000 tons of lithium carbonate from that one hole, Argento 1. So we immediately, after that announcement in February of last year, set about with a development program to prove that this block of claims holds closer to 4 million metric tons. And we're doing that by drilling additional production holes, as well as drilling diamond drill exploration holes to understand the geology of the base a little better. The actual production holes give you data and information on the hydrogeological model, you know, the liquid basin, whereas the diamond drill will give you data on structure, geological structure. Both programs are underway as we speak. We completed our second production well here in late November, and in early December, we announced our updated resource report, our updated 43101 resource report, based on the second production well we drilled, Argentina-2. And the results from this well took our initial resource from 1.4 million metric tons. It added 1.167 million metric tons for a total resource now of 2,587,000 tons from just those two wells. And these areas in pink and blue really indicate the area covered where those numbers come from. What's interesting too, and was pointed out to me by a number of geologists, with this second well, we proved this basin is connected. So now you're looking at a much larger aquifer that is brine and lithium bearing and is connected. There's not faulted, it's not separated, it's one large basin. So in January, the first week of January, we began drilling the third production hole, Argentina-3. It's in the northern border of our project, designed again to prove that the basin extends into this area here. We're currently at 330 meters on that third production well. Depending on the makeup of the aquifer, drilling through the halite cap, that rock is very quick. When you get into sands and gravels, it usually slows down. But we're hoping that that third well will be completed in about 45 days. So call it mid-March. And shortly after that, we'll be able to look at the results, the resources, the grades, and as I said, hopefully add between another 800,000 and a million. The diamond drill hole is drilling in this corner right now. Again, really designed to define the geological data. After the hole here, it'll move over into the southeast corner. We intend to drill up the northeast corner and in this corner as well. That geological data will help form the basis of our pre-feasibility study on the economic and the commerciality of this deposit. So we're well underway. Again, from a timing standpoint, we hope to have all that data collected, and we will be really putting together the initial pre-economic assessment sometime in May, June. And concurrent with that, we'll be filing the necessary environmental impact study and the data for the production permit for this project. We are planning on a 15 to 20,000 metric tons a year production facility based on what we're seeing. Today, we got our first, actually interesting enough, we got our first quote from Sunresin, which is one of the premier direct lithium extraction companies in the world today. And looking at our brines, looking at our chemistry, looking at our grades, they have proposed a 15,000 ton per year lithium carbonate facility would run about $130 million. So we're very pleased that the cap costs for a production facility of that size are very, very reasonable. Moving quickly, infrastructure. I get asked all the time, oh, this is great, you've got this great property. What about infrastructure? Well, one of the key ingredients, obviously, to lithium production is fresh water. And it's probably the one issue that you'll hear talked about most. We were pleased to announce that we drilled a freshwater well. Our geologists again saw a potential aquifer off the main basin, off the main salar, but on the flank. So we drilled and tested a freshwater well here this past summer, June, July, and August. And our engineers came up. First of all, they did discover a 100-meter thick freshwater aquifer at about 100 meters depth. But more importantly, the recharge flow rates that they studied for the better part of 2 months allowed them to apply. We applied in December for a permit to utilize 70 to 75 cubic meters of water from this well on a daily basis. This aquifer is more than capable of supporting that 70 cubic meters per hour. And at 70 cubic meters per hour, that will support a 15,000 ton a year production facility, whether you use traditional evaporation methods or whether you go with the current DLE technology, which we were looking at. So the good news is we've identified a freshwater source. We're in the process of permitting that well, and we expect to have results back on that water permit by mid-year as well. The other thing we just received yesterday is notification that the national gas provider in Argentina is going to run a main gas line now into the Salar Arizaro, and that they've got an MOU with us to provide us with natural gas. So we have fresh water, we have energy, and there's power. There's power that runs through the Salar Arizaro, which is about 20 kilometers away from our claim. So not only do we have a great developing resource, but we have the infrastructure now necessary to bring this into production. So we're very encouraged by all that's happened here. And since I talked to you last in October, but going forward as well. Quickly, as part of the commercial study and the commercial decision, we need to understand the chemistry of the brines, both for direct lithium extraction, but also what's the best methodology to produce this. So we're currently doing a test evaporation ponds. We're doing a test concentration. We're seeing, what impurities we can precipitate out, and just understanding the chemistry a lot better. And that too will form the basis for this pre-economic, pre-feasibility study on the project. We have a camp on site. The camp is now expanded to hold 60 people. We're self-contained. We have offices, living quarters, dining quarters, healthcare, and one of the best environmental programs, environmentally responsible programs on the whole Salar. It's interesting, we've had three inspections by the Environment Ministry and passed with flying colors all 3 times. So again, very proud of our team, very proud of the people. They've got a project underway now that is second to none in Argentina. Quickly, I mentioned, talk a little bit about the Chilean projects, because I think Chile is a great value adder to the Lithium Chile story. We've got to move a couple of these projects along. Number one right now on the books is the Salar de Yamara. It's a large property, over 35,000 hectares. We have some historical data. The government of Chile back in '97 drilled a water well on the property looking for fresh water. Unfortunately, it wasn't, it was brines. But when tested, it came back with 380 plus milligrams per liter of lithium. So we know there's an aquifer. We know it's lithium bearing. We're shooting geophysics now to see how large that potential aquifer is underneath our property. And the results that we've been getting back are very promising. So that's a major project for us that's currently underway. We have 5 lines of a 10-line program completed with results. We should have the balance of those lines completed, I would think, by the end of February is our goal. What was really interesting, I mentioned earlier on, we had a company approach us that has 25,000 hectares also in this Yamara Basin. They were not specific where they were, but they were specific in the sense they said there's been no work, there is no historical data, There's been no geophysical work on it. It's basically raw land. What stunned me, though, was when I asked them what they were looking for, and they were asking 18,000 US per hectare. A total purchase price for those 25,000 hectares of 450 million US. I personally thought they were off the rocker, but God bless them. If somebody's willing to pay that kind of top dollar for an exploration project, again, it just reinforces that the projects alone we have in Chile are grossly undervalued in our market cap. So 450 million for 25,000 hectares. We have 130,000 hectares and 2.5 million ton resource, and we have a market cap net of cash of $100 million. So I hope you can see there's tremendous upside as we execute and we realize on some of these value propositions. Los Moros and other projects drill ready. The nice thing about both Yamara and Los Moros, we don't have indigenous communities to deal with. Both are wide open in the sense that once you've got your geophysical data, you can apply for a permit without having to negotiate rights with any local communities. So it makes for a quick and easy way to get a drill program underway. So Los Moros is very promising. We also had a government water well that was drilled, again looking for fresh water. Came back with brines, but the grades there were in excess of 700 milligrams. We've got great geophysics on this project. We have 4 drill sites picked out. We're just in the process now of getting those permitted. One of the things that's also interesting about this project, the other half of the salar is owned by Anami. Anami is one of the government mining agencies, crown corporations, if you like. We've been in discussions with Anami to joint venture this project and one other one down here in Aguilera, because having Anami as a partner would pave the way for us to produce and sell the lithium in conjunction with the Chilean government. So they're very interested, we're very interested, and this is again a highly prospective project for 2023. 2 more underway, Coipasa, on Aguas Calientes. Aguas Calientes, I've got a team on there right now doing some sampling. What makes Aguas Calientes interesting is that there's a borax mining permit that covers our leases, and it's a way we can come in and actually through the borax lease, mining lease, we can come in and develop the lithium. So from that standpoint, if we see some good numbers and good results, we have a quick access to the project here. Coipasa is probably the flagship project in my mind. It's beautiful, great grades, large anomaly. The challenge here has always been the community. We engaged the top ESG law firm in Chile last year to bring the community on side. They've done a great job so far. I'm very hopeful that we will have a deal this year with the community at Coipasa to allow us to advance that project as well. Quick snapshot, we've done 3 JVs. I'm approached daily for others. As you know, lithium is hot. Lithium projects are scarce. And having the portfolio we do of really excellent prospective exploration projects, we get talked to by a lot of companies. We've signed 3 deals right now. They've given us equity stake in the companies, given us cash, and also have committed to put money in the ground. So what this does is it allows me to advance this large exploration portfolio in Chile, and yet keep a lot of my focus on the projects we like in Chile, but also our Argentinian project as well. Quick snapshot of who we are financially. We've been trading more recently in the 65, 70 cent range. So our market cap right now is about $135 million. We have 39 million in cash currently. So our market cap net of cash is about $100 million. Makes us one of the most undervalued lithium stories in our peer group. We're trying to address that by having these webinars and doing a lot of really presentations end of last year, beginning of this year. We have 196 million shares outstanding. I have 8 million warrants that come due February 23rd. We'll either bring additional cash in the story or reduce the outstanding. Those warrants at 60 cents. Management owns over 44% of the issued and outstanding shares. And we were announced this year as the London Mines and Money event is probably the premier mining event outside of PDAC in Toronto. It's held every year at the end of November, 1st of December in London. It's very well attended, and we were awarded there this year. It was announced that we were awarded Best Lithium Company of 2022 for our Arizaro discovery. So it was a great recognition for all our team members, all the employees that have been really critical in developing this resource. It was a nice recognition of all their efforts. And lastly, the team, myself, Steve Cochrane. I've really got an investment banking background, so my focus has been building the team and building the story. Michelle DiCecco, finance, accounting MBA, really has done a bang-up job in dealing with our investors, our shareholders, and the corporate development side. Jose de Castro, Mr. Lithium, 25 years of experience in Argentina and Chile in the lithium sector. He was founder of OTCQB, which was bought last year by LITH, Allchem now, sorry, Galaxy, for $3.2 billion US. So he's been a big part of the success, particularly in Argentina and the team he's built. Last, Terry Walker. He's really our senior geologist and explorationist. It's through his work and hard work that he's been able to put the brilliant exploration portfolio together in Chile, and he's done it at $3 a hectare. So that's our basic acquisition cost on 111,000 hectares. We've done it all through staking. So when we see properties going for 2,500 US per hectare, and we've got a cost of $3 per hectare, we see some significant upside, significant value creation in just our Chilean portfolio alone. So that's a quick overview. We did cover an awful lot of territory, and we'll now turn it back to Will. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, thanks, Steve. Thank you for a very detailed and insightful presentation. We're now going to move to the Q&A portion of the webinar. And if you're interested in asking a question or logged into the Zoom app or web platform, you can submit a question directly to us in the Q&A module. We're now going to take a quick pause as we assemble the questions. Did have a couple come in prior to, so I'll just get started with that. And actually, there were several that came in on the same topic, which was essentially corporate activity, M&A activity that is been happening in the lithium markets. So investors are wondering, is that level of activity, of interest, is that still ongoing?
Absolutely. There are really only 5 or 6 major global producers. Galaxy, which is Allchem now, Livent, which is the former FMC of Albemarle SQM, and a couple of Chinese producers. And they're hungry to secure feedstock, right? The battery industry is only getting bigger. Demand's only getting greater. And concern for a lot of these companies is, having sufficient lithium down the road to meet the needs. So as pointed out in one of those slides, there's been a huge level of M&A activity at the pre-production stage, right? These big companies, these big producers are buying up the intermediates like us purely for their resource. And that sweet spot seems to be about 3.5 million metric tons when you become a very attractive asset. And we will be there this year with our drill program. So I see it continuing. And the other thing that's interesting is that because of the work we did on Arizaro and proving it was a significant commercial lithium deposit, we've seen a lot of activity just on the Salar de Arizaro by big companies. We have a company called Sinochem and Tibet Summit. Tibet Summit in particular announced just before Christmas that they're investing $700 million US in their property in the Salar de Arizaro. So not only are we seeing the M&A activity, still percolating along, but we've also seen companies starting to look at making major investments in this project. And just out of curiosity or for information, this is our block here of claims, really where we're currently drilling and made the discovery. Tibet Summit claims are up here on the flank. So they're not even in the heart of the Salar, and yet they're still budgeting $700 million to develop their properties over here. So again, it's just another piece of evidence that not only is there a lot of interest in this Salar, but we are undervalued when you look at some of our contemporaries.
Thanks, Steve. And you just addressed this, but I think it's, an investor did ask this specifically. So it's probably worth just amplifying that, when you speak to recent M&A activity, is there a sweet spot? And I think you've mentioned that it's 3.5 million or so. You're at 2.6. And what's the time frame you feel comfortable in sort of getting up through that $3.5 million range, 3.5 million metric ton range?
Well, if you recall, we are well underway with our third production well, Argento 3. It's down, let's say, around 350 meters now. So we're really just starting to see the horizon where we expect to enter the lithium-bearing aquifer. And again, depending on how loose and gravelly that is, your drilling rate slows down quite a bit. But 45 days from now, we should be down. The depth of the hole here on Argento 1 was 465 meters. We went to 615 meters here on Argento 2. The actual aquifer here was 255 meters thick versus 130 meters thick. So, we are just now at the threshold of where we should start to see the continuation of this deposit, of this basin. And as I say, hopefully 45 days from now, we'll have enough information to generate that next updated resource. Now, what happens is you intersect, all these properties will intersect, and you don't count the resources twice, right? You sort of assign them to the areas, the new areas in the drill area. But the good news is where these circles intersect, your confidence in that resource goes up. So what will happen is that a lot of these inferred and indicated resources will move to measured, and the inferred will move to indicated, and indicated will move to measured as we prove that this basin is actually, one single basin. And that's where your real value starts to kick in, when bigger companies can look at, say, these are measured resources. The confidence that resource is there is exponentially higher, and that's where your value kicks in. So in a roundabout way, we should address that 3.4, 3.5 million target sometime before early summer.
Thanks. And along the same line, just following on that, and again, I know you touched on this briefly during the presentation, but are you planning on using evaporation or DLE going forward?
Right now, we're doing both. We're conducting pre-evaporation tests. We have got right now out of the ground, we're about 300 milligrams per liter. We've done evaporation test to 1,000, and we've done evaporation test to 2,000 milligrams per liter to see if it has any impact on the capex of your production facility and your opex. Do you use less water? Do you use less energy? Interesting enough, the quotes we got from Sun Resin on all three grades, they showed really the best capital investment is at the natural 300 milligrams per liter. The cost of the plant for 15,000 tons approximately was 130 million US. It dropped when they tested the 2,000 milligram per liter lithium. Your capex only dropped to about 106 million for a 15,000 ton a year plant. Your energy and water savings were less than 5%. And to build, evaporation ponds to get to that 2,000 milligrams, you're looking at probably another $50 million capital investment. So ironically, using the brine as it comes out of the ground is by far and away the most cost effective. So it was an interesting study that we just received the results of from this morning. So looking at DLE for sure, but we may be able to just go right from the wellhead into a DLE system. So that's something that would be explored.
It is interesting. Thanks. We did just have a question come in asking about offtake agreements, or do you have anything, any contracts in place? I know it's early stages for you at this point, but maybe you could just sort of address that question.
I could probably have a dozen if I wanted to go that route. But I don't. I think when you sign an offtake agreement, you limit your upside valuation to a potential suitor because they want your lithium, right? They want your resources. So if you sign an offtake agreement with another player, you probably limit your upside. So my goal is just say, listen, let's focus on creating or developing the resource itself. Let's build out the lithium we have in the ground here at this point in time without an offtake agreement, because I think at the end of the day, that's where we'll generate the most value. Suffice to say, though, if we want an offtake agreement, I can sign one tomorrow. But I think our focus really is just creating and adding to this resource. That's going to create the biggest value, I think, for our shareholders.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks. Another question came in on fairly recent development with the Canadian government decision to force Chinese divestment in several lithium companies. Just wondering if you give us an update where that stands right now and what are the implications and ramifications for Lithium Chile?
Well, I'll tell you, Will, we could have an hour webinar on that subject alone because it's been very divisive and it's created a lot of political fallout. And it was wrong on so many fundamental levels. And the silver lining for us is, well, twofold silver lining. Didn't affect us. We get to keep the cash. We didn't have to sell the shares. It really only impacts the Chinese. And I don't care how you look at it, it's a Chinese policy rather than a critical materials because they just focused on the Chinese. And we had a recent article, and the second silver lining, it made news around the world. So it didn't affect us operationally or fundamentally. And it put us on every newspaper, every financial report around the world. I probably have had 30 plus calls from around the globe, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, a lawyer representing a family out of Luxembourg, Britain, Germany, asking to buy that block. And I said, well, it's not our decision, it's Chengxing's decision who and when they want to sell it. And I've referred them to it, but I think Chengxing is looking for a strategic partner for that block. They love the resource, they love the asset, they love working with us, and we love working with them. So I think in the very near future, you'll see an announcement that block has been sold. And it'll be sold to somebody that could be strategically relevant to us down the road. I think that was the goal. So it did create an awful lot of publicity for us. And ironically, it probably did something the government was hoping not to do, and that's put us in play. I think all of the publicity and the fact that the Canadian government was trying to keep this asset out of the hands of the Chinese, why, right? So there's really created a lot of attention and a lot of interest in why this would happen and what made us so valuable. So the irony of the whole order is it's probably done just the opposite of what the government was hoping to do, which was secure critical resources, even though they're not in Canada, right? These are Argentinian Chilean assets, and there's still a lot of discussion onto whether the government of Canada has any jurisdiction over resource that lies outside of the country. But it really has created a huge amount of publicity and interest in who Lithium Chile is. So, it was done for political points. It wasn't done for policy, because the TSX came out and said in a free market, society in a country that has the largest mining exchange, largest number of mining companies listed in the world are listed on the TSX Venture and the TSX. And when the government moves to preclude one group of investors from investing in that market, you run the risk of losing all your investors, right? It just raises a concern that, is the TSX actually a free and open market? So I think the policy was wrong on a lot of levels. I think and we've been advised that there may be some adjustments to it over the next year or so, but it has created a lot of interest in who we are.
Interesting. That's put you on a lot of people's radar. Interesting. We're running up against time, but I did want to ask you a couple more questions here that have come in. First off, where do you see risk, and how are you managing those risks right now?
It's a great question, and really the biggest risk I see is your people, right? We've built an outstanding team, both in Chile and in Argentina. It's their hard work, it's their experience that have allowed us to manage the external risks we run into, be it the COVID slowdown or government decisions, exploration risk. I think the people and the team that we've assembled are one of our greatest assets, because they've allowed us to really not only survive 6 years of uncertainty, and especially in markets and in the lithium itself, but thrive, right? We are a much bigger, much better, financially stronger resource company today than we were even 2 years ago. So, the risks that and the unforeseen risks we've managed, and that has got to be, great credit to the people that we have in the company.
Great. This is the last question, and I just thought it would be a great way to sum up. If you could just give us some points on, why you're excited about Lithium Chile, how it's positioned now, and maybe just remind us about a few of the milestones that we should be looking for. I know you've got a lot on your plate in the next few months, short months coming up. So maybe if you could just give us a quick summation here.
Wow, that's a good question, but it's a big one. Well, the macro environment is still very encouraging. Climate change, the transition to electric vehicles, the need and the policies that are being implemented, the macro environment for lithium is going to be great for the foreseeable future. The war in Ukraine, taking ourselves off of the dependency on Russian oil, all of these factors, I think, are going to bode well for lithium as a commodity for the foreseeable future. So from the macro environment, we're in the right sector. We're in the sweet spot right now. I'm excited about that. On sort of a micro basis, I love to tell people, if you could be a fly on my wall here and just see the level of interest, and a lot of it just generated recently from that government announcement from around the world, you would be excited too. I mean, obviously, we're creating something of value through the drill rig and the drill bit. But at the same time, people are now wondering who we are and what makes us, so interesting to the Canadian government. So we have had really the biggest players in the world reach out to us and ask for more information, ask for access to data rooms. So I think not only are we going to add to our value with the drill bit over the next 6 months, I think all of a sudden there's a lot of companies that didn't know Lithium Chile from Adam who are now very interested in who and what we are. So I see developments on both sides over the next 6 months. I see, additional resources being added, not only in Argentina, but potentially in Chile as well. But I see other developments from a corporate standpoint, partnerships, JVs, from interested parties. So we're keeping a lot of balls in the air right now, but it's going to be a very exciting 6 months.
Fantastic. Thanks, Steve. And thanks everyone for joining today's webinar. Today's webinar recording will soon be made available on Lithium Chile's website. If you have any additional questions that have not been addressed on the webinar, please feel free to email us at lithiumchile@rbmilestone.com. Again, that's lithiumchile@rbmilestone.com. Thanks again, everyone. And this concludes our webinar.
Thank you.